Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We have another certified reverse mortgage professional, Millie Garcia, on with us. And Millie's near and dear to my heart. So I'm so excited to be able to bring her on and showcase all of what she has to offer with you guys. Thank you for coming on today, Millie. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to our audience.
Christina, thank you so much for having me on. I'm such a fan of yours, and so it's a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And so my name is Millie Garcia. My name is Mireya Garcia, but most people don't know how to roll the R's and don't know that the two L's are actually a Y. So Millie is my name, or what they say in Spanish. Mi nombre en apodo is Millie Garcia, but I go by my formal name is Mireya.
I love that you intro with that because we need more people that actually speak Spanish to help the Spanish community and the Latin borrowers who some of the older ones, they don't speak English well enough to understand this. I'm guessing you've probably had some experience with that.
I have the best trainer in the whole wide world, which was my mother. And so I actually got into this business because my parents did a reverse mortgage. And my mother was like, there is no way I'm going to sign with somebody, first of all, by phone. Somebody has to come in my living room, explain to me, tell me in Spanish, and I need to completely understand. And then they actually started doing it, and then they stopped because she didn't trust the process. And so I had to kind of guide her through it. At the time, I was an insurance agent, a financial advisor with Prudential at the time. And so I had done my research and, so I was guiding her through the process. But yeah, my mother's the one that taught me about patience, taught me about how important it is to understand the culture and explain all these terms that you actually don't know in Spanish. You don't grow up learning how to say reverse mortgages in Spanish. So it actually has been also a learning experience for me to have to learn the lingo, that we have to deal with every day.
Yeah, and culturally, you just pointed out something I want to kind of explore with you. In Latin society, it's more of a matriarchal culture. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, the mother's the one that really is the one that has everything controlled. She's the one that takes care of everything. So yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
understanding that has got to be a huge benefit for you to understand and come in and speak to the mother as the decision maker.
Absolutely. And I relate to them. And in fact, this morning I had a conversation with this lady and she's like, I want the house for my kids. And I'm like, okay. I know exactly what you're saying because my mother would always say, I want you to have the house. When we pass away, I want you to have the house. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want your house. I don't want it. You've already given me my education. I don't need your house, but thank you. And so I was having this conversation with a lady and agreeing with me because she has had a similar conversation with her daughter where the daughter's telling her, Mom, I don't need your home. So yes, I'm definitely able to connect on a personal level. And I think that's really what I bring to the reverse mortgage space is, first of all, because I am Hispanic, but the personal experience that I bring in having lived this loan through my parents' eyes as the kid, asking all the questions. And then, as a professional, and then seeing them through them because they both have passed. So I've gone through the beginning, middle, and end of the whole reverse mortgage process on a personal level.
Well, and I didn't even know this before this call, but you started in the financial world.
Yeah, I was actually in the insurance business for 17 years. So I was in insurance longer than and I have been in mortgage and reverse mortgages. But yeah, and so I was back in 2006, and I was working with Prudential, and my dad, I had just moved back with my parents after getting divorced, and my kids were small; they were 2 and 1. My dad was asleep at the bed. He fell from the bed, hit his head against the nightstand, and suffered a stroke.
Oh, I'm so
September
sorry.
September 6th, 2006. That's how well and how much it impacted our lives, And so my dad was a brilliant man. He worked for Raytheon for over 40 years. Smart guy. Helped develop the Patriot missile, the Hawk missile. Just a smart guy. But he thought he was going to work forever, and he felt great. He was in his 70s, and that day just turned our lives upside down. And so one of my aunts had mentioned reverse mortgages to me. And so I started doing some research. And at the time, I think it was Wells Fargo that offered it here locally and nobody else. And so, I used to work at Bank of America, so I didn't, want to do business with Post Fargo necessarily. So I Googled, I found a gentleman out in Austin who spoke Spanish. And I told him, if you want the business, you're going to have to come and speak to my mom, because my mom was a tough cookie. And so, he's like, okay. And so I go, and you need to know your Spanish very well, because she's just not going to sign something she doesn't believe in. So he did. He came down and he spoke to them, and they started the process, and then they stopped it. And then they ended up finishing and, doing the loan in 2007. And, and so I asked him about a year later if I could come work for him. And so he offered me the job. And, my mom at first, she would say, don't ever tell anybody we did a reverse mortgage. She was so embarrassed, but once she saw how it worked, how my parents were able to maintain their lifestyle, not ever having to change anything, even though my dad was in and out of the hospital, they were able to pay off all their bills and just really live a comfortable life for the last years that they had. And so towards the end of it, all the comadres, all the neighbors, everybody had a reverse mortgage. And so
Oh
and
my gosh, you're changing so many lives.
yeah, and she would even do my cakes for my closings and stuff as a closing gift. And so she became a believer. And so, man, that is huge. So she was finally able to understand. And, my mom was always a very prideful woman. She would never ask for any money. She was always very self-sufficient. She, going back to one of your first questions, she was the one that ran the house. And so, but even upon her death, we used the reverse mortgage proceeds to pay for her funeral. And, it kind of makes me chuckle a little bit, because even then she was still paying for her stuff, and so, which was really important for her. So yes, I definitely relate to my clients on all those levels for sure.
Oh, that's just absolutely amazing. I want to share with you, I'm adopted and my mom is half Mexican, so my grandmother's full Mexican, and I could never get through to her. She's still living today, but she's in a home. And I wish she could have done the reverse, because she had a free and clear house, but towards the end of living in her home, she was just too prideful, and her whole idea was leave it to the kids. But to be honest, my uncles and my mom are doing well. It would have served her so much better if someone like you could have come in, spoken her language to her, because my mom's not in the reverse industry. My dad is, and I am, but these are just the gringas and the gringo, and these are, things that they don't understand how Mexican culture works. So it's,
Yeah.
if somebody like you could have spoken to her, maybe she could have had some care brought in. Maybe she could have lived a little bit better in her home. And then the kids still inherit quite a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But,
And just to let them know that it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to leave it to your kids. It's such a cultural thing. But I've spoken to friends of different nationalities as well, and it's like their culture as well. So sometimes I think it's a Hispanic thing, but it's not. And but somehow with the Hispanic culture, we're fighting a lot of the distrust, just that we have overall. And so we're very distrusting. We'll only sign certain things or not sign other things if we don't fully understand them. And again, we're always taught to take care of our own. You're supposed to take care of your mom when you're older. You're supposed to take care of your 65-year-old kid, even though you're 90 years old. It's just so interesting to me. But I also see that it's changing. And so we're becoming better. And I think as the younger generations are coming in, we're just telling our parents, you know what, it's okay. It's okay for you not to leave the home. And frankly, I don't even expect it, So, yeah, so I think that's where I've really seen, over the course of the years. So I've been doing this now, since 2008. And it's definitely been a shift in my career, where before I would see more kids opposed, where now the kids are my best friends. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for helping my mom understand. Thank you for helping us find a solution. So that's definitely been a change that I've seen over the course of the years.
yeah, I don't know if you have an answer to this, but do you have a theory as to why that, not just your culture, but others? I've heard the same thing from Asian cultures as well. And I'm sure there's others where the parents are very against the reverse because they want to leave it to the kids. Do you have a theory as to where that comes from or why that is?
That's just what we're taught. I mean, if you say, nursing home to a Mexican family, they're going to freak out on you. They're going to say, oh no, it's not going to happen. And we're just the way we're brought up. We're taught to take care of our own. You're going to have to. It's not a choice. You're going to have to take care of your grandmother. You're going to have to take care of your parents. It's just ingrained in our brains since we're born. I can kind of
Yeah. My mom jokes with my brother that she's gonna put or I think it's my brother's idea that they're gonna put a boat in the pool and she'll live in the boat in the backyard in the pool. I'm like, you guys are crazy.
That is crazy. Well, I used to be in the insurance business, and oh my gosh, to speak about life insurance to a Hispanic family, oh my gosh, you say it and it's going to happen. So we don't like to plan because it's taboo. If oh my gosh, you don't talk. If you say life insurance, oh my gosh, I'm going to die the next day, and it's very interesting. And again, it's shifting. It's getting better, but we still have a ways to go. We still have all those abuelitas out there that are just like, I'm not gonna plan for life and for my burial or anything like that. It just it's really interesting.
It's kind of like taboo. Like if you speak it, it'll happen. So don't talk about it.
Ever.
It reminds me, my kids watch Encanto all the time. So I'm like, yeah, we don't talk about Bruno. I get it. Bruno said some things and we don't talk about him. So
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about the designation. So you have earned the CRMP, which there's only like 200 of us in the country. So this is a really high marker. What drove you to earn it, and what has your experience been having this?
I am so excited to finally get this done. It's been on my to-do list forever. And I first of all, I always want to be different. It's competitive out there. And so I wanted to show people that yes, I know my stuff. I've been in the business 15 years. I've originated many, many loans, but I needed that extra kick, especially because I do market in different areas. I don't know where I live if people even understand it or know what it means, but I know that in my area, probably the closest CRMP is at least 300 miles away. So, quite a ways away. And so I'm super proud to have it. And again, I just wanted to really, first of all, for me, it was important for me to have it because I've always been very serious about this business. It means a lot to me. It's the only loan I've ever touched. And so, I just wanted to really show that I knew my stuff and just the standards that this designation requires, the ethics, the coursework. You have to get a recommendation. You need a certain amount of years of experience, and that test is a doozy as well. And so I'm super proud to have it. And again, I think it probably means more to me than what people would even know what it means, so.
Well, and I love that you're willing to bring awareness to it, because to me, you are exemplary of what a CRMP should be. You're ethical, you know your stuff, you're always caring about the client and structuring the loans. I mean, I've seen you work. You're exemplary of what a CRMP should be. And for our audience's benefit, can you go over, if you remember some of the qualifications to be able to get this designation?
Well, to start, a very, very hard exam. I believe only 25% of the people even pass it. So it's a very difficult exam that truly kicked my butt, but I got it done. And then I think I had to take some continuing education hours that were required, and that took me a while. In fact, ended up doing it twice because it took me so long to get everything done. And then I believe I also needed a recommendation letter, and then from a superior, and then which I had to get two different letters because I worked with a different company back then. So I had a letter from my past employer, and then I had one from my current employer. And then what was the other part? And then I got a certain amount of years in the industry. So I got all those checks and finally got it done. And such a great monkey off my back to get done. I'm really excited.
But when I saw you, we have a call every now and then, and when I saw you on the call, I was like, yes.
Oh, you don't know how excited I was. Just like, finally. And again, and it's so funny. My colleagues, when I talk to them, like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to get it, and I'm just like, that was me for the last 3 or 4 years, and it really is just a matter of getting it done, getting serious about it and then getting it done.
That's awesome. So to flesh it out a little bit, I do remember the details. It's either 3 years. No, they just moved it to up to 5 years, I think.
Oh,
5 years for ops staff, 3 years for originators, and or 50 reverse mortgages closed. Specifically reverse, because sometimes I'll get questions for loan officers going, well, I've closed, hundreds of loans in my lifetime. I'm like, not reverse. It's quite
yeah,
different.
that's a whole different. Well, I think they need to add an element that says after 2015, 50 loans after 2015, because that's when our lives changed. And so at least mine did. And so I think they need to add that little caveat in there.
So let's talk about it. I love that you brought that up. People who haven't looked into a reverse mortgage since 2015 or before, or maybe they're hearing stories from people who haven't looked into it. What changed in 2015 for us, for the consumers?
Yeah. So what we like to say is it's not your grandmother's reverse mortgage anymore, right? So, so I mean, financial assessment really was a powerful thing that happened. It negatively affected my business initially, but man, I see the benefits tremendously. So to answer your question, first of all, we had to finally have underwriting. Back in the day, it was like, you get a loan, you get a loan, you get a loan. There was no requirements except for the age and the equity. There was, and I'm sorry about my dogs. Just age and equity were the only things that were required, really. Now, of course, there's some requirements, and it's involved, but the clients don't need to know what we have to go through as originators to sometimes deal with the underwriting issues. But now there's income requirements. There's a residual income requirement that we have to adhere to, and then credit. So it's all about how to structure the loan to let the underwriter know, that yes, we did pay, how we paid our past credits, our taxes and insurance, and so all those things are now more important, and we need to be able to prove that to the underwriter that this person will qualify without any restrictions, or they do need a life expectancy set aside to be able to qualify for the loan. And that's not a bad thing either.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, in fact, I if they were to do a poll of who's done the most Lisas, is what we call it, Lessas, it's probably me. It's my market, because again, we don't always have the best of credit. I don't know. There's just, in our culture, we loan our credit to our grandchildren. So I did a loan with a lady that had 3 cars. She was 80 years old. She didn't drive, and she had 3 cars on her credit. And so that was a residual income issue. That was a potential issue if they didn't pay on time. So it was a potential credit issue. Anyway, long story short, so I deal with a lot of credit issues. So I truly believe I've done the most, probably in the whole country, just because of where I reside. But so yeah, we need to, I think it's good in the sense that if somebody's in their 80s, or it doesn't even matter, it just depends on their certain situation where it just makes sense. I have a loan right now where this lady, her home's going to appraise very nice. It's like a $600,000 home. She's going to have money to pay off her bill. She's going to have enough money to pay off her mortgage, but it's going to be a good thing for her to have that money already set aside. She's a single woman. If something happens and she's got a very high tax rate, for her to have that money already there, she doesn't have to worry about it. And now she can just live off the income that she's receiving. So the Lisa really makes sense, in my opinion. So there's certain circumstances that I truly encourage it. Of course, it's their choice ultimately on some occasions, but sometimes it absolutely makes sense.
Right. Sometimes it's the difference between you can have this loan or you're not going to be able to get a reverse mortgage. Now, for anybody who doesn't understand what a Lisa or Lessa is, we have different audience viewers. So just anybody who doesn't understand what it is, what is it? How does it work? Why do you have so many files with it? And why do you think it's a good thing? I mean, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, somebody who does not show, and I'm running blank on the word. So it's
Life expectancy set aside.
I was thinking of the 2 words. So we want to show credit worthiness. And so, somebody who's not meeting the underwriting guidelines because they've paid late more than 2 times by 60 days in the last year on revolving credit, or they've been late on installment debt in the last 2 years, then the underwriter will require a life expectancy set aside. Also, sometimes if we're short on residual, we can also implement a life expectancy set aside, a LISA, to be able to supplement that income, so that way we can still qualify the loan. So for those two reasons. So the area that I live, it's low income. The house values are not as high as in other areas, but we have really, really high taxes. And so that all comes into play in the calculations of being able to qualify for the loan. And so I do come into situations where we're short on income, or again, because of credit, because there's the 80-year-old lady lending her credit to her kids and ruined it all up, or collections, multiple collections, sometimes will cause for the underwriter to request a LISA. And so those are usually the situations that I come across. Usually collections are one of the bigger ones that I see, multiple collections that are just cannot be explained. But, we can explain it through extenuating circumstances. We can come up with different, tell the underwriter a story. But if we're not able to provide the proper documentation to support that story, then we're still going to be stuck with that LISA. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing at all, because, again, somebody who has had issues in budgeting, or maybe they haven't had issues, but it would sure be nice to know that they don't have to worry about that ever again. And so, or not ever again, but until the money runs out. So knowing that, hey, taxes and insurance, we're good. You don't have to worry about that for now. And really work on budgeting on what you have now. You don't have a mortgage now. You don't have taxes. You don't have insurance that you have to worry about. And now we can really look at what you're receiving and how you're going to spend that, and not worry about anything else. So I do like that a lot.
I love that. And I'm assuming you are like me, where if you see it coming, you start to guide the client that way and say, hey, would it be nice for you to not have to worry about paying your property taxes, not have to worry about paying your homeowner's insurance every year? Are those bills kind of a burden? Would you like them included? And for the people who have free and clear houses and they're just looking for a little extra income, that makes such a big difference sometimes.
It really, really does. Going back to this lady, I mean, just her taxes and insurance per month were like $750. So to know that now she doesn't have to budget for that anymore and live off of the $2,000 she's getting every month, that is huge. It makes sense. And so, you asked me initially, well, what happened in 2015? Well, I feel like, having been a financial advisor in the past, I felt like I had come full circle, where I wasn't just taking a loan application. I was really now sitting down with my clients, going through a budget, and really coming up with a plan to help them navigate the next, few years of their lives, their decades that are left, but really just making them powerful and more meaning. And so it brought on a whole different client, and it's been exciting. It really has. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it really took my business into a whole different level, for sure.
Oh, I imagine. And anybody watching this, we have another video with a DE underwriter who talks about more of the credit decisions. Again, Millie, I don't know if you've had this experience, but on that interview, it's really fascinating. I said, it always felt to me like, coming from the forward lending side, there's hard stops. My background is I was a forward lender first, and there's hard stops. You don't have a 620 credit score, you're done. Bye. We'll see you when it's better. And on the reverse side, it always felt like the underwriters just have more of a heart. And so you'd mentioned, getting around the LISA when you have to, providing that documentation. It's like, well, you don't quite qualify, but we can very clearly see there's an event that happened at this point in time. Why don't you tell us a little more? Why don't you document some things about that? And let's more have a conversation about what happened and why it won't happen again. And sometimes, I had that call with a client, and he goes, well, I don't know. They got paid eventually. Like, you probably deserve a lease. It'd probably protect you pretty well.
I don't know if people even come to realize the heart that is behind everything in the back office. I'm sure it's your same experience. I mean, the underwriters really care. They really look to see what is going to be the best interest, make the deal work as best as possible, what's going to benefit the borrower the most. And it warms my heart to know that, everybody's on the same page. We are all rooting for this borrower. We want to be able to do this for them. Sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes Elisa makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. But we really look to find that best solution for them.
I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about when it doesn't make sense, it is hard to turn those borrowers down, but the purpose is to avoid the terrible media stories, right?
Right.
If the client doesn't make sense, what are some of the other options that you suggest for them where, they're just not going to qualify for the reverse income wise?
Income wise, I always ask my clients either way. It's like, okay, if you don't do this loan, what are we looking at? What other options are you looking at? And we talk through them and see what else is possible. We move in with the kids. Are we going to look at maybe a home equity loan that has different underwriting guidelines that our standards don't? So we go through those different options and see, or do we just wait? We wait a little bit, wait to clear out some of the debt, and so we just go through that process and see what is going to be the best option for them. And
Yeah.
sometimes doing nothing is an option, and it's sometimes we just have to wait. Sometimes life has a way of taking us into a different direction, and I always pray for my clients at the end of it. I always tell them, if this isn't something that's going to work out, there's always a reason for it.
I love that. And it's so true. You've probably seen where the clients tell you something about their lives later and go, oh, well, I'm glad we didn't do the reverse. That makes sense.
Yeah, I used to really, when I was new in the business, oh my gosh, I would stress when I couldn't do a loan. I felt so just I felt like I owed them, to get them through the loan. But I really had to take a step back and say, you know what? It's not me. This is a higher power that's taking over. And I just really, things are just meant to happen. And sometimes they're just not meant to. But we really do try and we really work hard to get them through the loan process and what's going to benefit them the most. For sure.
You just brought tears to my eyes remembering the hardest conversation I had to have telling people I'm so sorry. This is not going to work for you,
Oh, yeah.
and it happens, but it always happens for a reason.
Absolutely. And we get through so close to our clients in the process too, and talk about the Hispanic culture. I mean, I get blessed all day, every day, all day. I tell people sometimes I feel like the wedding singer where I get paid in meatballs, and soup, or they
Oh
have,
my God. I took a loaf of bread home from a client's house one time. It was the best bread I've ever had.
in fact, I just got a call from a client that I did her loan about, it must have been like 10 years ago, and her husband passed. And she needed some help. And she's like, Millie, please, can you come over and help me? She goes, I'll make you a tuna sandwich. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And so it's just, it's, there's just no words to describe what we go through. It really is an emotional job. It's an attachment. And it's just so much more than I ever imagined that it would be.
It really is. It's one of the most rewarding and difficult careers I think people can choose.
It's an emotional roller coaster. Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to practice your grounding practices.
Really, you have to be, you have to really be grounded to be able to sustain some of the stuff. The kids, the emotional stories that you hear, the attachment, it really is a lot. But you know what? I wouldn't do anything else.
Right? I know once you get in and you see how powerful this is and change lives, you're stuck.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
hooked rather, not stuck.
And it's not for the faint of heart either. It really isn't. It's not for everybody, but yeah, it's definitely been a life changer for me for sure.
And I'm sure you changed a lot of lives in the process.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to think so.
All right, Millie, we're getting
That's
to the end of our time. I have one final question I like to ask, which is if you could change the face of the American retirement, how would you change it?
Well, I can only speak to my culture, and it's just having a conversation earlier, just start planning about the long-term care, what's going to happen, and again, if we don't speak it, then it's still going to happen, but in my culture, we just don't. And so just having those conversations earlier, start planning, start getting an idea as to what would happen in case. And I think if we learned anything from COVID, that's what we've learned, is just life can change in a heartbeat. And so if you plan earlier, you're more apt to be able to take on those crazy things that happen in life.
I love that. I love that. Well, Millie, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, would you mind just telling them how they can get in contact with you to work with you?
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure. So my number is 915-383-5460. My name is Millie Garcia. And if you can say my formal name, Mireya, I'll love you for that. And so please call me and I'd be more than happy to help you. And if you need somebody in Spanish, yo hablo español.
I love it. You're going to get a call and say, Mireya. And you're like, I know where this one came from.
That'd be great.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me and sharing with all of your knowledge and all the care. It's just evident that you bring that to your work.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.